In the annals of history, we find stories of hardship, suffering, and injustice, and among these tales, there lies a painful chapter of enslaved African women who endured unimaginable trials. These women, known as Negro bed wenches, were caught in a web of cruelty that history cannot forget. Welcome to the mesmerizing realm of Ancient Worlds TV, where we embark on a captivating journey into the lives of our forebears. Join us in unraveling the challenges they encountered and the poignant stories that defined their existence. Enslaved on plantations of old, the Negro bed wench was an African woman whose tragic destiny was to serve the intimate desires of her white master. It was a role thrust upon them, one that was as degrading as it was demeaning. While some may wonder how anyone could accept such a fate willingly, we must remember that the bonds of slavery were heavy and inescapable. Enslaved women endured unimaginable horrors, including forced examinations of their fertility and sexual exploitation. Slave owners sought to maximize their profits, and for them, enslaved women were tools for reproduction. Secretly, they would impregnate these women, and when the children were old enough to toil in the fields, they were subjected to the same cruel fate of enslavement. This vicious cycle perpetuated the suffering. Enslaved males also had a tragic role to play. At just 15 years old, some were subjected to castration to ensure they couldn't father children that they would later see enslaved. These men were expected to impregnate at least 12 females each year, used as mere breeding instruments. For white men who saw themselves as benevolent, they claimed they were doing enslaved women a favor by sparing them from what they perceived as the brutality of their fellow African men. This twisted justification masked the deep-rooted racism and cruelty of the era. In a shocking revelation, we discover that male slaves were subjected to forced homosexual acts. Slave owners would engage in a practice known as breaking the buck, which involved brutalizing a defiant male slave and then subjecting him to sexual abuse. This unspeakable cruelty further highlights the inhumanity of the time. Slave owners had a vested interest in controlling the reproduction of enslaved people. Children born to enslaved women inherited their mother's enslaved status, making it financially advantageous for owners. This cruel practice enriched them while perpetuating the cycle of slavery. Long-term relationships, ranging from rape to romance, existed between enslavers and enslaved people. These relationships were complex and often born of coercion. Some enslaved women acquiesced to these relationships to secure better treatment for themselves and their children, but the beginnings of these unions were steeped in exploitation. In modern times, we see remnants of this painful history in what is referred to as the white daddy syndrome. Some black women have adopted a mindset that aligns with white supremacy, believing it makes them more acceptable. This deeply ingrained self-hate is a lingering scar from the past. The legacy of these enslaved African women and men is one of suffering, exploitation, and cruelty. Their lives were marred by a system that dehumanized them and left deep psychological wounds on generations to come. As we reflect on this dark chapter of history, let us remember that forgiveness does not mean forgetting, and our duty is to love, protect, serve, and defend ourselves, our families, and our communities. We must strive for a brighter, more just future, free from the shadows of the past. Males who experienced strained relationships with their mothers often sought fatherly love and acceptance from other males. This emotional need for validation sometimes led to homosexual relationships and served as a heartbreaking consequence of fractured family structures. That concludes today's video. Keep connected for more captivating content in the future. Don't forget to show your support by liking, commenting, and subscribing. We appreciate you tuning into Ancient Worlds TV. Thank you for watching.